Hello and welcome to this video where we're going to answer the question, would Ansel Adams use Lightroom? Now, first of all, I guess I can't assume you know who Ansel Adams is. So if you don't, please pause this video, go do an internet thing, wander around out there and go find out what a cool dude he was. I'll wait. Having said all that, the short version is Ansel Adams was a early 20th century American photographer, famous for his landscape photography work, especially in the American West, and especially work with the U.S. park system to help promote and get the word out about how cool the parks were are still in the West out here in America. So that's Ansel Adams. Lightroom, that's software. That's editing photos, making them look different than they originally did. So the question is, would Ansel Adams use that software today? Obviously, I don't know. I have a guess, and I'm going to share that opinion, and that's what this video is going to be all about. So what I plan to do in this video is share kind of a little bit of a background, why we're even asking this question, share my opinions about what Ansel Adams, how he worked in the traditional darkroom, the mechanical darkroom with chemicals and negatives to print, and then share a bit about how I use software and why I use it in my photos. So let's start with the background. The backstory. Why do we even ask this question? And I think there's several reasons to ask this question. I know in my photography classes, students ask this question, do I need to edit my photos? And my initial reaction is as feeling like that's a question like in an English paper. How long does the paper need to be? And it's a question of how much work I have to do. And I get that when you're in college and taking a class that you maybe have to take. But for us as folks who are engaged in photography because we want to create something, the question of extra work I don't think should be there. So other reasons given for not editing photos is, well, they didn't do it back in the day, which I'm going to address in a moment. Another reason given is, well, it's not real anymore. It's not reality. I just want to see what I saw. And another reason sometimes given is it's cheating. It's, taking, which is kind of connected to it's not what was really there. So I want to address this in two different ways, two parts. First, I want to address that the part about it's not being real. And second, I want to address the part about it's not how traditional photographers created their photos. So first, let's start with it's not real. A while ago, I made a video called Your Camera is Not a Copier. And in that video, which should be linked up here, I talked about several ways that don't use that as a reason, or that reason doesn't make much sense to me. Because every time you click with every camera ever made, it's not exactly the way it looked with our eyes. And that's awesome. That's part of the reason we do it. So here's some short reasons why when you click a button on a camera, you're already interpreting reality. First, this camera converts from 3D to 2D. Second, the camera is just looking through a little box. It doesn't have peripheral vision. Second, your camera might have a different lens on it that has a different field of view than your eyes do. Your camera is saving a file either onto film, which is interpreting reality because it's chemical and not actual, or onto a digital sensor, which is also programmed by people to do the best interpretation of the way the light was gathered. So it's already interpreted in lots and lots of different ways. So my opinion then is, why not add more of myself to that interpretation, which is already being done by others or things that have already been created. And then that photo then becomes a combination of work from the camera and myself. And I think Ansel Adams embraced that, because if you look at the way he created the prints, here's how he approached it. He said the negative, so when he went click and exposed the photosensitive material in his camera, the negative was the score. So in music, That means those were the notes on the sheet of paper. Those were the things, this is what goes here and the timing and all that. And then the print, the thing you would share, the tangible thing you could share from that negative is the performance, like at a concert. That's how the musicians interpreted that score, how they played it. Their unique voicing and phrasing and emphasis in different places of that original score of music. So just think about all the different music out there and how many different remakes have been of various songs, and how each artist has taken that same score, those same notes on the page, how they've added their voice, their tempo, their unique way of their musical style. Maybe it's acoustic, maybe it's country, maybe it's rap, maybe it's rock and roll, but it's the same song, but it all sounds different. So Ansel Adams approached his photography that way, his printmaking. So I'm going to put a video up on screen here from it's recorded in 2011, and it's an interview with Ansel Adams' son, Michael. And in this video, they're talking about Ansel Adams' approach to making prints, specifically with this photo, Moonrise over Alvarez, and how he went from the original negative and did a process mechanically called dodging and burning. So he would take withhold light from a certain portion of the image with this cardboard disc attached to a stick. And then he would also do a process called burning, where he would have a piece of cardboard with a hole cut in it of various shapes and add extra light to those in that area so it will become darker. So that mechanical process of dancing with the print from negative to photo paper was very unique. Everyone would be different, and it was allowed him to express how he wanted the photo to look, how he wanted to call attention to different areas with brightness and darkness, how he wanted the overall mood of brightness and darkness to appear in the image. That might be different than if you just printed the image without any intervention. So if you watch this video, skip to time marker 5 minutes, 49 seconds. And there's a graphic on the screen, which is Ansel Adams' instructions to himself for how he did the dodging and burning and the development of that image. This is dated February 22, 1980. So that's how these are his notes to himself. They're kind of in code. Michael wasn't sure how to read them, but they're his notes of how he did that dodging and burning. We do that in a similar way now with Lightroom or other software with sliders, as well as other local adjustment tools that I'll share in some example photos. So very much, I believe Ansel Adams was doing what we do now. He just did it mechanically with tools, with cutouts and circles and chemicals. We do it now with bits and bytes and software. Now, obviously, Ansel Adams was not alone in the way he approached this. It was relatively common, and I don't think most people don't know how much work traditionally in the darkroom, the wet darkroom with chemicals, was involved in creating prints that we saw. So I'm going to show you so these images show how the print went from a straight print with no mechanical intervention to a print that had intervention of dodging and burning primarily to shape your attention, to darken certain areas, brighten others, so that you would not just have this gray thing, but you'd have more contrast, and contrast helps shape attention. So that photo of James Dean shows that. This one of Muhammad Ali does as well. Of Henry Cartier-Bresson at MLK's I Have a Dream speech. Again, look at how they're shaping color on the, light on the face and in the sky, in the reflecting pond. And also as well in this photo of Audrey Hepburn, looking out a car window, shaping the reflections on the side of the car, her face, and different parts of the car. So what I'd like to do is show you some of my photos and the way I approach editing photos with software. And the way I approach editing photos with software is it allows me to do a couple of things that I couldn't do without the software. I like to think that Ansel Adams had a similar outlook, a similar approach to taking his photos as I do, in that he would know the limits of his the film media he was dealing with, his lenses of the day, and he would know what his capabilities were in the traditional darkroom, that he could create his photos, his exposure, to address the limits of the negatives of the day, because he was going to be able to do some things in the darkroom. I approach my digital photography in a similar way. I know what I can do in my camera, and I know what I'm also creating the photos in mind of what I'm able to do in software. Here's one of the advantages of that, at least for me. One of the ways I embrace that is it helps me concentrate and focus, pardon the pun, on how I frame things in that box. I worry a little bit less about the technical elements of white balance, of exposure, if I'm off by a half a stop or two, not or two, but if I'm off by a little bit on my exposure. And I worry more about the hard part, the part that is I always have the most control over, which is the composition. Knowing that I can fix some things both creatively and technically in software. So let's start with this photo, this flower. And what I did in this photo is a combination of things. I used some global tools to adjust color and attention a little bit. And then I used a local adjustment tool, which is very similar to the burn tool, called the radial gradient. And I applied that to the center of the flower. So here's the before image. Here's the before image out of camera, a raw file. So it's an unedited, pretty close to a digital negative out of my camera. So it's kind of flat. There's not a lot of contrast of color, of brightness. It's relatively gray. So it's, if you just saw this, you would know what to look at, but I'm shaping your attention in my edit by creating more brightness in the center, creating contrasting colors, complementary colors in the background to the center, so it helps you all look more like they go together. So one of the tools I used is the radial filter, which is represented here in the red. And what I did for that was I made it brighter, and I made some other adjustments, brought out the shadows. And then through the rest of the document, you can see I made a lot of edits. So that takes us from, again, this original to this edit. And another thing, besides correcting some of these things and shaping your attention, that I've done is the way I've done them is unique to me. It's my voice. It's my visual voice. I hesitate to say style because I don't have much of a style, but it's my voice. It's the way I like to create images and make them more me. And I think that's one of the great advantages to editing photos, is it lets you add that final layer of yourself, your personality, your voice, your phrasing, all those kind of music-related terms that we use to the image. Let's go to this photo. A sunset in Sammamish, just down the road from where I live. Very dramatic. But I'm going to show you an example in this photo of how I used software to kind of save my butt on this image, because it wasn't pretty when we started. So when I created the photo, one of the things I wanted to do was get that sun star. So I closed my aperture down to f22. It's a very small opening, which helps get the sun rays to do that. Now, the consequence of that is it increases all the things that are in focus, including all the spots of dust on my sensor that I didn't notice, or they might be on the front of the lens as well. So it's a combination of things, a whole bunch of schmutz all over here. It's just yuck. I mean, this photo would be unusable. I would never show it to anybody with all that stuff there. So I removed it with the spot removal tool, which is like the clone tool in Photoshop. Obviously, I switched enhanced colors, played with contrast, shaped attention, added drama, and just made it a little, well, it's a lot over the top. But I kind of like that. It's not real. I don't think it went too far into the overly dramatic. You may disagree. Add your comments below. gently, please. YouTube, be kind. And we'll go from there. Last photo here that we'll talk about is St. Paul's Cathedral in London. And the edit goes from the original photo here, again, flat and gray. And what I wanted to do with this photo was add some more kind of punch, more emotion to this photo, get it away from black and white, add some color. And I also wanted to strengthen the connection between those two side modern buildings to the old St. Paul's, which has been around for hundreds of years and survived fires and wars and many changes of leaderships. And so that's why I made the edits I made. I want to bring out some of the details as well in the sky by adjusting exposure there. Bring some of the blues that were there kind of hiding. I wanted to enhance them. And again, the reason for that is to, in this case, both be an expression of my voice of this photo, but also how it felt to me while I was there. Add some emotional layer of meaning to this that wasn't there in this flat, gray, almost black and white image. So there you have it. The answer to the question, would Ansel Adams use Lightroom? And I think he would. Obviously, that's my opinion. I don't know that for a fact, but anyone who would build a custom enlarger so that he could project images on a wall instead of traditionally down, that ran on railroad tracks and was motorized, had an investment intellectually and creatively in not doing things the usual way. And in doing all he could to give himself the ability to have as much control over that final print to make it his, he'd use Lightroom, I believe, the software of the day. So I'd love to have conversation with you about what you think about this. You know what to do. The comments go below. And I'd also invite you to subscribe to this channel. We'll be doing more conversations about creating interesting photos, all the different ways to do that. We'll talk about gear. We'll talk about philosophy. We'll do all sorts of things. So I'd love if you subscribed. If you like this video, it helps me and the YouTube algorithm out if you gently click on that like button, and then maybe share this with a friend or two. That'd be kind of cool. I'd appreciate that. So I hope that was fun for you. I hope you enjoyed this, some thoughts about Ansel Adams, Lightroom, and editing photos and how they used to do it, how we do it now, why we do it, all the different reasons. Maybe I changed your mind, maybe I didn't, and that's okay. So I hope you have fun creating photos in the way that you most enjoy. I hope you stay safe out there, stay well, and I look forward to connecting with you in the next video. So until we meet on this screen again, take care, be safe,